I'm left mostly with images that appear and die off in my mind like distant sounds. Sacred stories. Stories of Genesis and the tree where man was born, starting with my father. His character would have been fully formed, I think, his restlessness. He seemed to inhabit a world of hard surfaces, without much attention to comfort or detail. Confused and alone, bitter in his solitude, his eyes searching an empty sky above white earth. Maybe that's what I want out of life, he said, pointing upward. And then he proceeded to climb, like a salmon swimming blindly upstream toward the site of his own conception. He straightened his back, looking out at the horizon until he could see it curve and smelling the sultry, scented air. He hadn't created it, but he was smart, and his knowledge of the world seemed inexhaustible. He spoke of the wild animals that still roamed the plains, enchanted names, his large hands outstretched to direct attention. And then, they seemed to be everywhere. For whenever he spoke, something unexpected happened. Black trees, 2 birds of paradise, an ape, chickens and ducks running every which way, and finally 2 baby crocodiles. They had a strange, unnatural pallor. They smelled of new leather. Suddenly, he lets out a quick shout. "A monkey!" It landed with a thud. Then it grew completely still. "Damn," he said, shaking his head in disgust. Suddenly, the whole thing seemed so fragile in retrospect, so haphazard. But the results were irreversible. A bit embarrassed by his own impulsiveness, he is careful to end on a happy note. Romantic images, set against scenic green hills. Even love. And light, and hope. He whispered the word. And then, he was gone. I grew quiet, waiting for my father. Counting on him to ease my passage through unfamiliar terrain. Eventually, a tall, pecan-colored man came up and put a hand on my shoulder. "Stan the man," he said. I nodded. His appearance didn't inspire much confidence. The fantasy of my father, strong as 100 men, was all but extinguished. But I would never admit that to him. "Where did your faith come from?" he asked me. "I had faith in myself," I said finally. All my life, I'd carried a single image of my father, the man in my mother's stories. Whatever I do, it seems, I won't do much worse than he did. He grinned and slapped me on the back, and we laughed and laughed as we looked at each other, and he grudgingly agreed. "The only reason I'm still around is that nobody's willing to replace me." he said. I was worried at first, I said. Now, I can see that my choices were never truly mine alone. I'd be repeating a pattern that had been set in motion centuries before. Yeah, well, it was in the genes, he said. I understood. We each remained locked in our own memories. Finally, I asked him, who was I? I don't know, he said. A figure of random authority. A collection of grievances. Or maybe a boy who radiated like the sun. The promise of something new and important. Which would you rather be? You see, your character is also a construct. Your ideas about yourself are finally transformed into something firmer. We ended up spending the afternoon together, talking and drinking coffee. Eventually, the conversation stopped. Before my eyes, he grew small, his bones stiffened, and hair began to gray, and I saw now that he was shaking. Control the decay, I said. I had so much left to say. You don't understand, he said. I can't. Later, lying in bed, he spoke of a wish he'd once had. His gift to me, the mother who had gone away. The room fell quiet. Suddenly, her voice like the voice of a dream. She was laughing brightly, a round, full sound from deep in her belly. We looked in the direction of the sound, and I remained speechless for a moment. My mother laughed once more, and I quickly followed suit. And she laughed, and I laughed, and we stood suspended. I better be going, he said, and his solemn face spread into a silly grin, his head back, with a gaping hole where his nose should have been. Now he was dead, soon turned to dust. My mother sighed. I asked her what she was thinking about, and she smiled softly. An infinite number of chance meetings, the role of luck in the world, without a script or plot that might insist on progression. It was only now that I began to grasp the almost mathematical precision, she said. It's beautiful. Well, now that he was gone, I said, I can do whatever I damn well please, for I now have a place in the world. She was laughing brightly, so certain in her son's destiny. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, the anguish and the fear had slowly drained away. I felt safe. My eyes kept closing every 5 minutes, and before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. When I woke up the next morning, it seemed like the most beautiful day of my life.